The premise of Island Siege is that you and a rival are attempting to colonize a set of islands before one another. There are two different ways that you can win Island Siege. One is by using all 9 of your colonists in different forts in front of you. The second is by obtaining 20 coins and having more coins than your rival. To set up Island Siege, each person receives a starting fort that's filled with all 4 wall pieces. Those are designated with certain colors by what's underneath them. They also receive 1 Imperial card. The Imperial card will show you all of your colonists, so you begin with 9. As you remove or use colonists, it unlocks different aspects. So after you've used the first 3 colonists, you get to re-roll your dice when you're attacking an additional time. After you've used your second 3 colonists, you get an additional attack dice, and then if you use the last 3 colonists, then you would win during the victory check phase. The Imperial card also shows you that if you roll 2 leadership dice, you can destroy an opponent's ship. It also shows you that with your basic attack, you get to roll 3 attack dice, and you have a re-roll. At the top of the card, you also have your boat, which indicates your intent to attack a specific fort. So along with setup, you always deal 3 cards to each person. Those 3 cards can be anything from a fort, a building, or a boat. Those are purchased and used in different ways, but at the beginning of the game you'll be dealt 3 cards. You hand 1 to your opponent and you keep 2 of them. Every turn in Island Siege consists of 3 different phases. The first is the victory check phase. This is where you just check to see whether or not you won. So if you've used all 9 of your colonists, then you've won. If you have 20 or more coins in your possession and you have more coins than your opponent, you've won. So you always check for victory first. That means that you can't win at the end of your turn. You have to win at the start of your next turn, which always gives your opponent a chance to respond. The second part of your turn is the colonize phase, where you can move 1 colonist onto each fort that's in front of you as long as there are spaces remaining. The third part of your turn is the action phase, in which you can choose to do 1 of 3 different things. You can draw cards, where you would draw 3 cards, you get a look at them, decide to keep 2 of them, and then give the third to your opponent. The second action phase you can do or choose to do is building. You would be building something from your hand. So you can build forts. If you choose to build a fort, you take 1 wall piece from the supply that matches a color of the fort and place it onto the fort. And then you can also choose to use any of your supply to fill in other wall pieces. You do not have to fill in the entire wall. You can just fill in portions, but that obviously makes it strengthened. You can also choose to build buildings. If you build a building, you have to have the number of colonists inside the fort you're building it within on the fort, and then you move those colonists to the building. So in this example, I would have to already have had 3 colonists in this fort, and then when I choose to build this building, I move the 3 colonists to that building. This building gives me a number of bonuses. It gives me 3 coins immediately from the supply, and that obviously counts towards victory. It also gives me 1 wall piece to reinforce this fort if I want to. And then it also gives me a bonus, and each building gives you a different bonus just based on the text within there and what kind of building it is. The third card that you can build is a boat. Boats have a colonist requirement as well, so in this case this one costs 2. I can actually pull colonists from any number of forts in this case. So I could pull 2 colonists and put them into this boat, and then that boat will give me coins towards victory, and then it also gives me a different result depending on what the card says itself. So this one actually aids when I'm attacking. The third action that you can take instead of drawing or building would be attacking your opponent. So you can attack one of your opponent's forts. If you choose to do this, you take your boat and place it in front of the fort that you're choosing to attack. When you attack, you get to roll the number of dice represented by how many colonists you've used, and you have a number of re-rolls also represented by how many colonists you've used. Your base attack will always consist of 3 dice and at least 1 re-roll. If I've used all 3 of my colonists from the first layer, then I get an additional re-roll, which just allows me to re-roll whichever dice I'd like to. If I've used the next 3 colonists, then I get to use an additional dice. So right now I've only used 5 colonists, so I get an additional re-roll, but I don't yet get that additional dice. So I can roll 3 dice, When you roll the dice, there are a number of different things that can appear. There's a color depending on what type of wall, so there's gray, black, as well as white. You also have a leadership option and a target option. When you're initially attacking, you want to try to get the colors of wall pieces that your opponent already has. So in this case, I can either choose gray or white. So if this was my roll and I re-rolled one because I don't want that leadership, so now I've got one gray, one white, and one target. So I can choose to either attack gray walls or white walls. When you're attacking, you must attack all of the like color at the same time. So if I tried to attack gray right now, I would not actually be able to defeat it because it requires 2. I can, however, attack her white wall and remove that. That will just be returned to the supply, and I've attacked part of her wall. So that's the first part of my attack. The second part of my attack is either a reinforce or a second wave. A second wave is if you use a target icon to take out one piece of wall, and that piece of wall doesn't have to be a certain color. It doesn't have to be one that's not in a set, so I could take out one of the gray, even though I couldn't have done that earlier because I didn't roll 2 gray. So that's the second wave. The reinforce is the other option, so you do one or the other, second wave or reinforce. Reinforce would mean I take any of the cubes that have a color on them that I did not use to attack, and I get to gain that from the supply to fill my fort's walls later on. So I could choose to take one white cube if I wanted to. If I had rolled a white and a black here, a white, black, and a gray, let's say, then with my first attack, I could have attacked the white, so I attacked her white and got rid of that wall piece, and I have a remaining gray and black, so I could take a gray and black from the supply. So if during an attack you destroy all of the walls that are a part of a person's fort, that fort is discarded, as well as any buildings within that fort, and all of the colonists from the fort and the buildings are returned to the player's Imperial card. So that's how to play Island Siege. Of course, turns will just go back and forth like that until someone either has used all of their colonists or they've gained 20 coins, and again, that's checked at the beginning of each turn. So if you have any questions about how to play Island Siege, feel free to leave those in the comments.